One thing I've noticed on a lot of these privacy focused communities is that they'll recommend setups to less tech savvy users that are just completely unrealistic for them. Like somebody will ask how to get a little more privacy out of their system, and then they're being told to switch their operating system with like one of 30 different options, each one claiming to be the best while having their own massive trade offs. And then they'll be told to switch their browser because, your browser is a massive privacy risk, of course. So you need to switch your browser to this much less popular one with much worse web compatibility. Oh, and install these 5+ browser extensions for your privacy, naturally. And if you want syncing across your devices, that's no problem, man. Just clone this GitHub repository, download the build tools, build it from source, and install any dependencies, everything like that. And oh, it's Linux only, by the way. Should have told you sooner. So, of course, you'll either need to use Docker, install or configure your WSL and run it through that, or you'll need to just switch to Linux, bro, which obviously is the recommended option. And then you need to use a de-Googled phone. So let's use Graphene OS. So you need a specific model of a phone with a specific bootloader, an unlockable bootloader, so to speak. And then you need to actually unlock it manually and flash it manually yourself. And if you screw it up, congratulations, you just bricked your $1,000 phone. Oh, and obviously just disable JavaScript too while we're at it, right? Like, do you see my point? At some point, we have to ask whether we're actually helping people. And this is my entire point with privacy focused communities. I just think they give terrible advice to less tech savvy users who might just want a little more privacy, and now they're being told to completely uproot their digital life and replace it with options that are just worse compared to what they were already using. But the only benefit is more privacy, right? People care about convenience a lot more than I think these privacy focused communities think. Like, for example, I'm someone who you could consider pretty privacy focused. I'm, a cybersecurity engineer. Yet, if you actually look at my system here, I'm using Windows. I know it looks like Windows 10, but I am using Windows 11. I made a video showing how to make Windows 11 look like Windows 10 if you want to go check that out, but that's besides the point. I'm using Windows, being someone who's more of a privacy focused person and everything like that, but I'm using Windows because I care about convenience, right? Like I used Linux for a whole year on this main PC. I daily drove Linux on this main PC for a year and about 2 to 3 years on my laptop, which I do use pretty often. And on both of these systems, I switched back to Windows eventually because it was just better for my workflows, for what I do. And this is a big point that I think a lot of privacy communities fail to understand, that no one size fits all, right? They'll recommend all these different solutions when in reality some of these solutions are just worse off for some people. And they sell them like they're the golden goose, right? They're the golden solution. This is a perfect alternative, and then people use it only to realize it fucking sucks, right? There's a big issue people have with switching to Linux when they use things like Adobe software, right? Like Adobe Photoshop or whatever else, because all of the free and open source alternatives suck. They absolutely suck, right? Like they're free and open source, right? So yeah, ideologically, yeah, that's great, right? Idealism, but actual functionality wise, they are just horrible. And this is honestly one of the biggest issues I have, at least, is that they care a lot more about the ideology and, it's free and open source so it's better kind of thing, rather than focusing on whether it's actually tangibly better, functionality wise and actual daily use, right? Because a lot of these privacy focused people, they really enjoy working with their computers, they enjoy tinkering, they enjoy, trying to improve their privacy. Most people are using their computers to just get shit done and get off, right? A lot of them just want to get on and just play a video game. A lot of them just want to pay their taxes and get off, right? For example, my family, before I moved out, my parents, what they would do is they would just, they had a single laptop. They went to like a Best Buy or something. They just got one of the cheaper Windows laptops they could find. It was like an HP. And they just use it to pay taxes. They open it up when it's tax time, they pay the taxes, they get off, right? Or pay the bills, right? They open it up, pay the bills, they get off, because they don't like computers, they don't care. They just want it to do what they want, right? And I have a lot of friends who are more just kind of gamers, right? They just want to use their PCs to play video games. And one of them actually did try Linux. He wanted to give it a shot. Literally within a month, switched back to Windows because he realized that, wow, this is just worse for what I do. there's several very major use cases that are downplayed by these privacy communities that are just worse experiences on Linux compared to Windows, or even using the open source alternatives of the software compared to the proprietary versions. Even Office software, right? I've used LibreOffice. It fucking sucks. It is garbage. Let me tell you that. It is hot ass. But LibreOffice is often preached as like a great alternative to Microsoft Office when it really isn't. It just isn't. And there's some other privacy alternatives that are genuinely better. Like I would argue that a lot of what Proton has to offer is pretty solid, right? If you haven't used Proton before, I recommend giving it a shot because they're actually doing a pretty solid job at making tools that are decent, services that are pretty decently easy to use while still supporting your privacy. But even those have some downsides, right? Because with a Google account, I just have everything connected to it, right? Because pretty much everything uses a Google account. Everything is Google account support. So it's so easy to just have one Google account that just everything is connected to, and then it's synced across all my devices and stuff. Proton still kind of offers this, but it's still kind of iffy. And they're doing a solid job still, I think, but even then it's still an example that like these tools are more private, more secure. But if that's your main selling point, how are you actually going to convince the masses to move over to you, right? When Proton, for example, I'm pretty sure their free drive storage amount is like 500 megabytes or something. Or I think like if you do onboarding steps or whatever, they'll raise it to like 2 gigabytes. Versus Google Drive gives you 15 gigs free, right? Like there, you see the point. Like people care about these actual tangible differences. They're not minuscule. These are major downsides, and you can't make them up with just "but it's private." That most regular users don't care. Okay, they care about privacy if it actually benefits them. But if privacy is going to be this major inconvenience, this major downside that they have to keep maintaining and keep up with, then it's not a worth it trade-off for them. And a lot of privacy focused communities will blame the end users for this, that because they're so much more distinguished and better than them, of course, naturally. But no, that's not reality, right? A lot of these privacy focused communities fail to see that regular users care about convenience more than privacy. And we can talk about fairness all day long. We can talk about, oh well, that's just this cruel world that we live in, boohoo, right? In a perfect world, right? And then they always go into that. But it's that's not the world that we live in. You have to face reality, okay? In a perfect world, we wouldn't have to be dealing with any of this. I wouldn't be having to make these videos right now at all, and I wouldn't be even talking about this. But I am, and we're here, and this is what it's like now. So this is the world that we're dealing with, and instead of actually trying to deal with the situation we're being dealt, we're just brushing them aside, calling them normies, and then writing it off as, oh, we're just better than them. And that's just silly. That is not reality, okay? And yeah, I think I've been rambling on enough here. It's already been 8 minutes here of just pure yap. But I think my point makes sense. I've talked about this kind of in other videos where I came to this conclusion that privacy has a branding issue. And I still believe that now. I think that privacy has a major issue with actually selling itself. Privacy focused communities have an issue selling people on this stuff because you can successfully sell someone on something and you can tell them it's the greatest thing ever or whatever and get them to try it. But then if they try it and immediately realize that half the crap you said was complete bullshit and it's actually not even close to what they were using previously, they are going to jump back and then they're going to have a worse perception of that thing now. And they're going to not recommend it to other people anymore. Versus if you actually sold it honestly, maybe it would have a better chance. And I feel like we should actually focus on actually improving these tools first before we start selling them as these great solutions, because right now they're just not. And you may feel differently, right? You may feel differently. You may think that they're great. I feel like the numbers and I feel like the objective reality states otherwise. Because if it was a better option and it truly was just so easy to use now, then more people would be using it. And I don't think saying that, oh, it's just because Microsoft, or oh, it's just, those are cop out reasons. Okay, that those are cop outs. If the tool was genuinely better, it would be more used, and it's not. And I think that really reflects the actual reality of the situation. Because when you go online and you see people talk about Linux and you see people talk about privacy, you're looking at a very small minority of actual human beings. These people who are actually engaging with these conversations in these little niche corners are not reflective of the average working man who's too busy to go on these internet forums and start yapping with people in Discord servers or whatever, right? Like, those people are very vocal online, but they're a minority compared to the actual majority, the silent majority of people who are just trying to use their computers and get off, and they just are trying to make a livable wage so they can go play with their kids and raise a family, or do whatever they're doing in the real world, right? It, I feel like it's just painfully obvious, but a lot of these privacy focused communities fail to hit the mark. And I've noticed something else too. I've had this conversation with quite a few people, talking about how, like, we can't fully put our finger on it, but for some reason, whenever we think of these privacy focused communities or whatever, we just kind of get a bad taste in our mouth. And the way I would describe most privacy communities that I see with one word is immature. That's the word I would pick, because I feel like a lot of the mentality that they have is just immature and not reflective. It's like they're just completely disconnected from reality, right? And again, I feel like I'm really starting to just like insult them and stuff. That's really not the goal here. I'm trying to give constructive criticism here. I'm trying to just state what I've witnessed myself, throughout being involved in these communities, and also being involved with regular, average, everyday people that I, see in person or even see online. And just from what I've seen, I really feel like privacy communities just give terrible advice to less tech savvy users. That's about it. And before I go, I'll end this video off by mentioning, if you're a company, whether you're small, medium, or large, and you watch my videos, you hear what I have to say, and you like what I have to say, and you think that I know a thing or two about computers and privacy and whatnot, then what Raven offers as one of our business offerings is something called Bird's Eye, where we do cybersecurity consultancy for companies of any size. And we work with you based on your budget to provide affordable cybersecurity consultancy that actually works for your company, rather than providing bloated, crazy reports and tons of meetings and all this extra useless stuff. We focus down on what actually matters to actually get your company improved, what you actually need, instead of just, throwing crap at you, right? Because a lot of these cybersecurity consultancy services cost thousands of, hundreds of thousands of dollars, even tens of thousands. And what they offer you is so much crap that you don't need, so much bloat that you don't need, when in reality, all you really need is just some solid advice, maybe a small report, and whatever works for your business, right? And that's exactly what we offer. So we do offer security advisory access, which means that you can actually get questions, reliable answers to your questions, without needing a full security team or internal expertise or anything like that. You get proper cybersecurity risk assessment and prioritization, so you actually get to identify the real tangible risks of your system, strip out all the hypothetical stuff that doesn't actually matter, and get to the real operational risks that you have right now, and how to solve them. And then you do get security baseline review and hardening without disrupting your current operations, and all of these other things as well. And the entire goal is for businesses that, have a lot going on and they don't have enough time or energy to really focus on doing a ton of this research and cybersecurity stuff themselves. You can pay us and we'll help you with your cybersecurity needs, where you can get straight to improving without all the extra bloat. But that's about it.